Okay. Not there yet.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order at
Boop, boop. We got this.
Just roll with it, it's good.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30. Would everybody please stand for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amber, would you please note all board members and admins present? And then, board, you have an agenda in front of you. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. I'll support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. So for the next up, we have the consent agenda, which includes the approval of board minutes for the regular meeting of October 21st, 2022, committee of the whole meeting from November 4th, 2022, approval of the accounts payable in $1,431,493.42 for the month of October 2024. The approval of the treasurer's report dated October 31st, 2024 with a balance of $3,802,473.63. The approval of new hires. Lindsay?
Yep. So we had 3 resignations. Laura Super, she moved down to her family down in Illinois. Margarita got a job in Allegan, I believe, different position, and then Christine Peterson left our daycare. So, and then we have a new hire, Jessica Allen, to fill in for Christine Peterson in the meantime. And then I sent out a job description to all of our high schoolers, our 11th and 12th graders, and we've had like 7 kids say they want to work the position. So that's super exciting.
Cool.
So we're going to hopefully get those kiddos in some type of rotation. We get coverage over there to take care of.
Very cool.
So at this time, I would entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll support.
Roll call vote, please.
Shu,
Yes.
Mavis, Phillips,
Yes.
Horsey,
Yes.
Spelter,
Yes.
Davidson,
Yes.
Eberstein.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. Next up, we have request community input. Sarah, could you go to the...
Sorry. It's just me for the next one.
Okay, for the next
yeah.
one. Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Kim. Next up, we have a superintendent update.
Yep, so I've got your printout here in front of you. We are going to go over our curriculum report too, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about my stuff first, and then Teresa will end us out. So again, making sure that we're keeping the strategic plan alive. I have our 4 big goal areas there and what we're doing to really tackle those things. Again, I know that we've been talking a lot about whole child when we're talking about our climate and culture and improving student conflict in that. We're analyzing our PBIS information right now, so our Ethan Alexander from KRESA is going with each of our deans and pockets to each building to really assess how well are we implementing positive behavior intervention supports. So we're going to take all that data, bring it back to our whole child team next month, and really see where are we doing really, really well with handing out RAMS tickets, or where are we not doing such a great job of like, hey, you're really showing respect, achieve, manage, and succeed in these areas, and really leveraging that out in each building. So we're assessing that to find action areas of improvement. We have our panorama survey for our families and for our staff and students, and we sent that out 2 weeks ago now? 2 weeks ago. So we're going to close that out here hopefully after Thanksgiving break, beginning of December. We'll take that data and look at this. Will be the 3rd year that we've given that. Lots of variable changes over those 3 years, so it'll be hard to maybe compare some information, but we're hopeful to be able to find some trends and some areas of growth in that as well. Moving over to improving relationships in the district and trust, we are having our instructional video. Last month we did safety video. We have an instructional video. It's about 10 minutes. There's so much we wanted to pack into that, but that will be launching out next week. So we are hopeful to really share the greatness around instructional practices and our instructors in district and share that out in our community. This is the same video, the Youth Solution Select, that we didn't show last month. Because we have a little bit longer board meeting, I'm not going to show it again today, but I wanted to make sure that if you didn't see it last month, that you look at this Youth Solution Select video as well. It really just talks about how our career readiness and how we are doing things at the high school and middle school level around career opportunities. We're leveraging really, really well through our flex time and through our Workforce Wednesdays program. So you'll hear a little bit about that in there. Teresa's going to touch on our instructional rounds process, but that's really what we're doing to make sure that we're getting a lot of staff engagement, not just around like, yay, climate and culture, but around instruction in what we know is best practice in the classroom so that they can share that from each other to learn the best from each other. Okay, going down to budget. Philip and I were chit-chatting earlier in the beginning of the year, and just one of the conversations we talked about transportation, we talked about Chartwells and our food department and whatnot. And so we had some questions just around making sure that our food budget is a balanced budget. Like we shouldn't be paying into this program. So we had a conversation about what are we doing to ensure that we're really ending the school year next year with a balanced budget. And so last year they had meals at around $2.20, even with little numbers today. $2.20 per meal, and now they've got it down because they know what to order and what to put on the menu down to like $1.49, which is gonna and should help us get down to a more balanced budget. Safety. So obviously anything that we do around safety, we try to live in the prevention world, right? So we are doing a lot around reunification. So we've got all of our action plans, we do all of our drills and prepare for any type of situation that could be around safety. But one of those big looming parts is reunification, and what would we do if we really did get in a situation? So we are in the action steps, like taking steps tomorrow morning to go to our reunification site for the high school and walk through and really, like, okay, if we had to bring students and families here, where would we be? What would it look like? Where would signs go? Where would we have people pick up kids? So we have dates for all 3 buildings scheduled in that. We're working with Deputy Murphy, and then the safety team with Kay Risa to make sure that comes alive. So pretty cool. Pretty proud of that. That's been a lot of work that I've done a lot of in my years, but never gotten to that step. So that's pretty amazing. We ordered, how many AEDs, Philip, do you remember? 9? We ordered a bunch of new AEDs that match what the emergency guys, the emergency response team, when they come, they match the same AEDs so that they're not trying to take pads off if they were being used to connect to a different machine. So we updated those. So that was something that Frank Couch took on, and we have them in the right locations. With our new internet, we've had a lot of, I guess, the announcements not working, and so when the internet goes down, we can't speak over the announcements, which could be a safety issue. So we asked Kaylee to come up with a solution, Kaylee Wilson, our tech department through Kay Risa, and she is going to have a hardwired line in each office, kind of like Grease, dun, 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 and then they talk into the microphone. So that's what that's going to be in each one of the buildings, so that we can have that come alive when, if we need, and those things are done. So our bond is kind of taking 2, points of conversation, but we're going to talk about the stadium right now. Frank, Mike Woodard, and Shaw, Triangle, Tower Pinkster, we all went out to the field. We had a meeting, and it was about whether we're going to receive the field or not receive the field kind of conversation. We showed lots of pictures that we were very displeased with, and then we went out there, and Shaw's, Triangles, and Tower Pinkster's faces dropped when they saw the pictures that we'd shown them. So they are very aware of our unhappiness in that sense. So we're in a holding pattern on that. I'm not sure what they're doing to correct it. I will say it will not be cut our field open again.
So they were surprised when they saw the picture.
Yes, it wasn't just us complaining. So again, I'll give you more updates on that when it comes. We had to pour some new cement outside the primary steam building section because it wasn't level. It was graded wrong, so they corrected that. Not out of our budget. Transportation. I was working closely with Sean and transportation team to identify what buses do we have that we are using versus the ones that we're not using, and are we paying for lease buses that we shouldn't be paying for lease buses on to rent. So we are underway with the conversation of what it may be to purchase those two. We have to purchase buses in the future at some point anyway, so if we're already putting that money out, why do it through lease? Why not do it through payment? So we are figuring out what that may look like. We are going to celebrate the transportation staff next Tuesday already. Holy moly. Next Tuesday. We're going to have a Thanksgiving lunch for them that's going to be catered just to tell them thank you so much for all the job that they do. And they've been great. Like Collins, and they've been very dedicated, so I'm very proud of that team. Facilities, we are really looking into, I told you guys, I think it was during our cow last whatever week, that we are at about a 300,000 just, hey, this is what needs to be fixed tomorrow kind of checklist of things that we need to go through. So we are looking to see what those projects may need to be fixed and what the plan is to get those corrected. Athletics, winter sports are launching, literally girls basketball today. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little hard on my heart. So yeah, that's starting to, the winter sports are starting today. And then we have a little initiative, Lunch with Leadership, that I want to do quarterly. So I'm going to bring all the Galesburg and Augusta businesses that want to come and have lunch with the principals and myself, just to get to know how we can help each other, what can we support in their businesses, and then vice versa here at the school. So
Have you got a good response on that?
I've had 2 people I know for sure say yes, but then Audrey's collecting the list, so I haven't gotten an update from her as to what that is yet.
Somebody reached out to me too. So
Oh, outstanding. Forward it over to me or Audrey. And then now we have our curriculum report from our curriculum director, Teresa King, aka your principal.
Hello. So I decided to really focus on 4. Can you guys hear me okay back there? Kim, can you hear me? I'll use my big teacher voice. I tried to update you on probably 4 of the most high leverage curriculum updates. When you look at the strategic plan up in that top right corner, we're really trying to focus on increasing opportunities for staff engagement and district improvement. So what we know about change leadership is if we want to make change, we need to make sure to involve the people. And so the first one I want to update you on, we have that strong partnership with ECJV, and they have blessed us greatly financially. This summer, Kim was one of our participants that went, but we had our STEAM department. So if you remember back a couple of years now, we had a STEAM vision that we wanted K-12 STEAM for all. So some local districts provide an opportunity for some, and we wanted all. So we are in the stage of working on some curriculum alignment, and thank you to ECJV for sending us to that training. The teachers got a lot of training. I'm working with them monthly for us to build a coherent scope and sequence K-8. So that's kind of where we're resting right now. We have kits from ECJV that they've partnered us with called World in Motion. We have kits through Amazon, and then we have some teacher-developed units too. So things such as, I know Kim took on robotics, which was like a deep learning curve, and she's doing amazing. And then our 6th grade teacher is taking on a lot with coding, and the kids are really excited about that and the connection to the real world and what that looks like in practice. So we've been spending time doing that piece and then receiving coaching from the company that gave us the training. And so our ask for ECJV for the next time, because they're starting to want us to build that next budget, is how do we expand this project-based learning? We know that when it's set with like an entry event, a driving question, kids are more engaged than just sit and get lecture. This is about involving them in a problem-based structure. So stay tuned for that, but we have made a lot of headway this year, learning about all the different subset of standards that involves, learning technology standards and art standards and math and engineering practices. So it's been a good learning experience for us all, and then we're visioning forward what that could look like in high school. So thinking about electives and ways to kind of enhance that. Lindsay touched on instructional rounds. The primary school has been doing those for about 7 years since I partnered with them when I was at K-RISA. And now I'm proud to say we have that K-12, and we're the only district in our county that's doing it K-12. And so the way that we're set up for this year then is that every single teacher will have the chance to get into every single classroom in their building. And so we are trying to prioritize our new teachers. And we just took a brand new teacher. She just graduated in the spring of last year, and she's like, I just saw 18 people, and then all the ideas that come out of that, and just it's such a good learning experience. So around that, our focus is how do we get kids to talk and engage more, so that it's less about sit and get instruction, but engaging kids, and we've seen a ton of good strategies. And so we're really just bridging that K-12, which then leads to part C with the district teacher leadership team. So the exciting thing this year is that in addition to meeting with the teacher leaders, that team has grown over time. We have not lost a single person, we've added. Teachers are excited about the changes that are coming and being involved in that. And so we meet every single month, and then we build their leadership capacity to then go back to their buildings, to go back to their classrooms, to go back to their grade levels to lead some of this work. So it's kind of boots on the ground, and they decide what learning their building needs through the lens of collaborative.
And that wouldn't happen without her leadership.
Oh, thank you. And then the last thing that's pretty exciting is the Explore program. So I wanted to give you an update about that. That was a grant that we wrote. Chris Rice wrote the first installment, and then he kind of moved on to a different responsibility. So we're trying to get the implementation going with that. But Lindsay Neal has been instrumental in writing the curriculum. And this is, we have $20,000 between the middle school and the high school, and we're trying to build the field of education, essentially. So she's got a group of 10 high school students right now. This is an elective. And they've been learning about education. And not just being dropped into a classroom being a helper, but actually like, how do you teach? How do you differentiate? How do you give feedback to students? And then starting in January, this is so exciting. She has them aligned with teachers, and our district teachers are going to get stipends for supporting those students, planning with them, reflecting with them. But the kids twice a week will then be going to the middle school and into the primary to actually have like an internship experience. So it's really excited. She's also volunteered some of her time to bring some of this elective coursework into the middle school to just start to prime the pump, to learn more about education and all the different job opportunities. So I think it just connects to our college and career readiness, that experience the field before you leave, and then you might find that you either like it or you don't, but that's part of that exploration. So those are probably four of like the most high leverage. So we've been making lots of great headway, just deepening the work that we've been doing.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the GACS audit report for Yo and Yo.
She never has. Oh wait, I gotta get you a projector right here, don't I? There you are.
All right, thanks for having me. So I'm Mike Everard with Yo and Yo, and here to give a presentation on the audit results. So everybody in front of you has a packet of information. Don't be scared, we're not going over all of it. So there's a big financial statement packet that's just revolved around the finances on your numbers. There's a smaller packet that says single audit on the front of it. This has your audit results in it, and then also it's more focused on grant compliance instead of numbers. Also inside is a letter that's just loose in there. This has a bunch of information that we're required to communicate to you as your auditor. And then what we will go over is the fourth item, which is the PowerPoint. So this is a summary of all this stuff. We're condensing probably 85 pages down into like 15 slides, and we've got graphs and much nicer to look at. So the official reporting is everything else, and this is more unofficial. So if anybody has questions at any point, feel free to interrupt me at any time. You don't have to wait. So on the first slide, just want to talk a little bit about responsibilities. We want to be clear that as your auditor, we have to be independent to audit the finances, and We do not come in and help do bookkeeping or clean anything up or anything like that at all. All that stuff is done independently and presented to us, and then we evaluate it. So that's saying that management is responsible for the financial statements, and also it's important for the internal control piece as well. You have to have really good internal controls in order to produce accurate financial statements and guard against fraud and errors and things like that. On the second slide, it talks about our responsibilities. Won't say too much other than that. Just like lawyers or a lot of other employment groups, there's a whole set of ethical standards and professional standards that we have to follow. And that's our main responsibility, is to follow all those standards so we can plan and perform our audit correctly. So I'll talk a little bit about what an audit is on the next slide. The objective of an audit for you guys, we've got two big main objectives. Number one is to report on the accuracy of all the financial information that's in the financial statements. And number two is to give you an opinion on whether we think you've complied in all material respects with the rules of your federal grants, because you do receive quite a bit of federal dollars like most school districts do. So that's our main objective. But in order to get there, the standards say that we have to obtain an understanding of your internal controls, bullet point number one. The reason for that is, there's a certain science to auditing. There's just certain things that we have to do, that we have to look at, but other things are up to our discretion. So in order for us to have good judgment and know where to spend our time, we have to understand, the strengths and weaknesses of the business office, both from processes and, skills, knowledge, and experience type things. So to get that understanding, that's exactly what we do. First thing we look at the people in your business office and say, okay, how long have they been doing this? Have they had any kind of issues before? Misstatements in prior audits. Do they have experience in school districts, especially in Michigan school districts, which are very unique? We do an evaluation there. Then we look at your policies and procedures as they're written down and say, are these designed appropriately? Then we follow those through to actual reality and say, in practice, are the processes that are happening on a day-to-day basis, are they what the nice written procedures say that we're doing, and are they effective? So those are the main ways that we get our understanding of internal controls, and then we make our audit plan and we decide what we're going to look at, what dollar value we consider to be material. Are there certain areas that we can confirm, run reports? Those would be substantive procedures. So we're able to go out to the state of Michigan website, run all kinds of reports that show exactly how much money they sent you, so we can have a very good, high level of assurance over those type of items. We also do a number of analytical procedures, which is, us saying this is what I expect to happen versus what actually happened. There are certain relationships in your financial statements. Right in the middle, I always bring up this unpredictability. So this is important to doing an audit. If you've been through an audit before, you have a very good idea of what your auditor is going to ask for. And the point of this unpredictability is, as an auditor, you don't want to be predictable. So every year we have to do a brainstorming session. We come up with something that your business office would not expect us to do, and we don't give them a lot of time to prepare for that really, whereas everything else, they get those requests really far in advance. So every year we think of something to keep them on their toes. Also, we have to do your audit in accordance with government auditing standards. There's a lot of tax dollars coming to the district, so we have to, there's extra scrutiny placed on those dollars, and we have to be more mindful of fraud, waste, and abuse. We also have to do some other compliance testing. So Michigan Department of Ed puts out an audit manual every year, and they update that every year, and we have to make sure that we're doing all the things that they want us to do in addition to the normal auditing standards that we have to follow. And then that's kind of an overview of the audit. Toward the end, we help prepare your financial statements, and then as a convenience to you, we also take care of all your reporting submissions to the state, federal government, and then your ISD as well. So as far as results go, we'll start that on the next slide, and you received an unmodified opinion. that's what you want to get. An unmodified opinion says that we attest that all the numbers in your financial statements are materially accurate. If you were to get a modified opinion, it would say something like, everything looks good except for something. So we did not have to modify that. It's unmodified, which is a good thing. So when I mentioned that internal control evaluation on the next slide, when we talked about the objective of an audit, you're not getting an opinion on your internal controls. That's to help us for planning. But if we come across anything that's deficient, we're certainly going to tell the board about that. The two highest level of deficiencies that we can communicate would be a material weakness and a significant deficiency. I'm not going to go into defining those because you did not have any. There's been many years in a row now of having clean audits with no type of findings, and this is another one of those years. The single audit, again, is focused on compliance with federal guidelines. You are a low-risk auditee, which is excellent to show because low-risk auditee tells anybody looking at your reporting that we've had a demonstrated history of following the rules, and the federal government allows us to deem you low risk, which allows us to cut back on certain testing that we have to do, and we have to have less coverage. So your major program this year was the Child Nutrition Cluster, so that's the free and reduced lunch program. I won't talk your ear off, but just a few things to give you an idea of what we do in a single audit. A common test would be payroll. So we look at all the people that are getting paid under the food service program. We look to make sure that their wage rates are correct, any benefits, that those are charged correctly. We have to look at eligibility, so any of the kids that are getting free or reduced lunch, we have to look at those applications and make sure that they were filled out correctly and that they actually qualify and that they're placed into the bucket that they're supposed to be in. We also do some meal claims testing, so every month we say, okay, you've claimed that you've served X number of meals, 14,000 meals, whatever that number is. We make sure that you have backup to support that those meals are being claimed to the exact number that they were served. So just a few things that we have to check. There's others. Your single audit looked great as well. No material weaknesses, no material non-compliance to report, so completely clean there. Some other things that we have to tell you, if we had any disagreements with management, that's a required communication. We had none. We also had no significant difficulties conducting the audit. So an example of that would be documentation went missing, or certain things didn't make sense and management had no explanation for it, or unreasonable time constraints, something like that. Everything went fantastic. We have a whole list of things that we asked for, and all of those items were provided well in advance of even when we started the audit. So there were no kind of delays in any way, and we were able to start your audit and finish it very, very quickly and turn that around quickly. We also had no material audit adjustments. In my opinion, this is one of the more important things, maybe the most important thing. At the end of the day, we could have came in and made 50 adjustments, and as long as your numbers are correct at the end of the day, you're still going to get that unmodified opinion. But that bullet point tells you it was correct to begin with, and we did not have to propose any kind of corrections. And then the last bullet point says no management comments. This is a management comment would be an immaterial recommendation for improvement from us. Something that we noticed, like, okay, you're not following these rules quite to a T. It's not a huge deal, but we just want to let you know, and we didn't even have any of those. So that's really excellent. On the next slide, we'll get into this. Got a real high-level financial stuff for you and some benchmarking. So on the next slide, we have all of your funds and total inflows and total outflows from those funds. So of course, your general fund is usually the most of interest. You pretty much had a wash. It went up about $80,000, so you ended the year at $2.2 million. On a future slide, we'll talk about how does that compare? Is that a good number or not? Food service fund, I'll say a couple words about. there's a lot of districts in Michigan that their food service fund balance is way too high, and it's really not their fault, but it's a very common recommendation that we have to give. You're only allowed to have 3 months of average operating expenditures in your food service fund, because the idea is you're not supposed to be, making money off the food service. So you are one of the districts that you're under that allowable balance, which is, from a compliance standpoint, is a good thing. I'll skip over to the capital project funds. The biggest fund within that is your 2022 bonds that were passed just a couple years ago. You can see started the year at 10.2 million, and at year end you're at about 1.5. So basically tons of activity during those bonds for the current year, and we're really wrapping up those projects. So as of year end, there's around $1.5 million or so to spend. I will mention too, whenever you pass a bond, you're required to get a bond audit, and we're doing that audit every year as we do your financial statement audit. So that way, once the bond is wrapped up, we'll have the audit all ready to go, ready to send as soon as it's ready, and that way you don't have to go back and look at anything in the past. On the next slide, we've got a budget to actual comparison. So column 1 shows where you were at June of 23. It's really hard to do this budget sometimes because you don't know what your student count is going to be. You don't know what the state budget looks like, how much your per pupil allowance is going to be, etc. So you do probably a couple amendments at least. The second column shows your final budget, June of 24, and then where you actually came in at. So you can see there was a deficit of a little over $400,000 that was projected. The actual numbers are a slight surplus, so came in much, much better than expected there. Got a few graphs for you. I don't always show this slide, but I do want to show this one this year because the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a large influx of dollars from the federal COVID type of grants that have been coming in. And this is really probably about the last year that you were going to have any of that money. There might be a tiny bit left over for next year. I didn't look, but the federal piece there, I know it looks really small at 3%, but it is over $400,000. So there's some money that you've been receiving for the past 3 or 4 years that is going away and not being renewed. So that'll probably be an even smaller slice next year. The next slide is similar, except it shows where you're spending your dollars. The two biggest pieces there is payroll, salaries and benefits, adds up to 75% of everything. So this is very typical for a school district, and your third biggest would be purchase services at 18%. The next several graphs are some trend graphs, so you can see what's happening over time. So I like to show this one. This is your student count and what's been happening over time. So this one goes back 10 years to 2014, and I'll say there's a lot of districts in Michigan that theirs just goes down, 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 and it's really happening everywhere. This is a little bit more stable of a graph than I'm used to showing, I think, at a lot of different places. So your blended count for the year was up just a tick from last year at 976. The following graph shows your general fund balance and what's been going over time there. So you can see the last several years pretty much even. You have a lot of flexibility with those COVID federal grants. There's some districts that spent it pretty evenly over the 3-4 year period. Some just did a lot of spending in year one. Some saved it all to the end. So that explanation is going to directly affect the next slide, which is a benchmark that I put in these presentations. You take your fund balance and divide it by your expenditures, come up with a ratio, and there's a document that MDE publishes every year that has that ratio for every district in Michigan, all kinds of other stuff.
Okay, all in favor?
So
Aye.
your number
5-0, we will
for 2023, they're really good.
704 will come back at
13.08%. So just to give you an
706.
idea of
I literally
I'm
how
timing
that
you.
compares,
We don't like to go
statewide
there
average
anyway.
for last
Thank
year
you very much.
was 22.2%, and districts of similar size to you is at about a 20%. So you can see, that is quite a bit below what the average is. One thing that I will say about that is, with what I just mentioned about all districts are spending that money, differently, it makes it so your ending fund balance is not as comparable as it would be in other years. So there's a little bit of an asterisk on there, but I think either way you look at it, it is a little below the average. For the current year, for 24, the data is not out there yet. The document won't come out for quite a while still. This graph here shows the retirement rate history. So this one I go back more than 10 years just for illustration purposes. But back in 2009, you can see that the retirement rate was 16.5%. For the current year, it was up to 48%. So, that it's one of the difficulties that all school districts are facing is that rising retirement rate. So you'll see there's two lines here. Blue line is the total rate that you're responsible for. The orange rate is what we call the unsubsidized rate. So the difference between those two lines is what you get from state aid every month to send into the retirement plan to help fund your total obligation. So for the current year, the rate was up 3%, which is again a very big number on your payroll. That was extra retirement expense you had to come up with this year that you didn't in the prior year. For next year, or the year you're currently in, 24-25, the rate is basically identical. It goes up less than 1/10%. But you can see the total rate, the blue line, is going down. So basically what that means is the state is requiring you to pay in less overall, but the difference is coming 100% from the state. So your portion basically stays the same. Hopefully that makes sense. On the next slide, so we always do a slide on big upcoming accounting changes. This one isn't a huge change. I just kind of introducing it. You'll hear me talk more about it next year, but the way we account for compensated absences is going to change a little bit. It does not affect your general fund whatsoever, so I won't go into detail on that. So be more next year on that. So that was all I had. Want to say thank you to the board very much. Also to Lindsay and then Philip at KRISA and his staff. Just really great group of people to work with and makes our job easy as auditors, and we're able to give you a very effective, thorough audit and get it done quickly. So any questions anybody has, I'd be happy to answer those.
So to sum it up, overall everything's great, but you would say for a school our size, approximately 20% fund balance is what you see on average?
Yeah, technically for last year it was 22, so just to give you an idea on dollars what that means. So your fund balance right now is at about $2.2 million. If you were to be average, it would be about $3.7 million, so about $1.5 million short of what the state average is. But yeah, it would be 20% for districts of similar size, which I think is around 1,000 kids.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll get there.
Any other questions? Thank you, Michael.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have the GA Foundation report. Laura?
The Galesburg-Augusta Foundation recently completed its annual audit, which reported no discrepancies. Yay. The foundation will host their annual dinner fundraiser on Monday, February 24th at Digging Cafe from 4 to 6:30 p.m. The event will feature lasagna for dinner, so mark your calendars for that. Additionally, we have initiated our annual letter writing campaign to fundraise, and the foundation has concluded the review and approval process for the the EE grants. This year, we were able to award $11,360 in response to 26 grant requests. So, thank God for the foundation and all their help. So, that's it.
And next up, we have the bond update.
I kind of did that in my board report, so I think we're good.
Safety update.
I also did that in my
Superintendent Evaluation Committee report. Just wanted to remind everybody that in December for the CAL meeting, we'll have our closed session where we will do our first informal review. Any questions on that?
Do we need to do ratings or we do not yet?
No, she'll
Okay,
just
good. So we
tell
don't need
us,
to prepare.
like, yeah,
Thank you.
and we'll
And
just
we'll
talk about them.
Thank you.
My understanding.
Wanna make sure.
Okay, board report, the MASB conference.
So I did a little slideshow. I shared it with all you guys. So you can look over it. It's kind of the quick version of like the highlights that I felt were great. And then I did try to go on to upload all of Saturday's sessions, and they were already on there. So all the sessions are on the.
Sarah,
Oh,
did
thank
mine.
you.
I came home and I'm like, had them all ready to go. Just had to move them over.
The one that I really want to dive into is the onboarding.
Yes,
That
and
one I
we should
need to look
talk.
over.
But yeah, they said steal it, use it, and go with it. So
Yeah.
We should have looked at it.
Yeah.
We did onboarding with Gary tonight.
nice.
It's on
It
our,
it went really
it's on our
well.
Google Drive.
Great.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, we
I don't
put
know,
all
it's
the
in our
different
Google Drive.
sessions, ones that we attended, and then the other ones we were all available. So
Yeah, so if you guys want to look at them, go in the Google Drive and check them out. Next up, we have business items for discussion. A monthly budget discussion with.
Thank you for being good with yo and yo too, Philip. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I always like to make sure we give a shout out to particularly Jane, but building secretaries, principals, everyone in central office. It really, having a good audit outcome starts there with folks paying attention to details. So, thank you. Monthly budget discussion. Nothing really to highlight except for there was one item under pupil transportation, bus purchase, which was approved by the board, but it was not included in the original budget, so that's creating that variance there. Other than that, everything's on track. We're 4 months into the fiscal year. But are there questions about that statement? Very good.
Thank you, Philip. Next up, we have communications, public participants. At this time, if you would like to speak, please state your name for the board, and you'll have 3 minutes. Kim Jankowski.
I only need about 30 seconds, but Kim Jankowski. I just wanted to talk briefly about negotiations. I'm trying to bring back all of the changes that we appreciate. And I want to thank Lindsay because her transparency has been, even though we've had some moments of frustration, her transparency has been very helpful to us. It's definitely different than